Hello, Dr. Flight here to talk a little bit about market entry strategy. There are some different ways to define a market and specifically the demand for a product. We've looked at various ways to segment markets, and there are different approaches to bring products to market relative to the scope of the market, the size of the market. One could bring a product to the mass market, to the generic market, and do some mass distribution of the product, or the product could be distributed on a one-to-one basis. So we can go from mass marketing, if you will, to micro marketing, and then there's a whole range in between there of various strategies that can be used in order to bring the product to market depending on the scope in which you define the market. So that's what this segment deals with. It deals with making entry decisions with your product based on how you define the scope of the market. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about different approaches when it comes to bringing a product to market as it relates to the size of the market segment or the scope or the perspective of the market that you want to try to reach. So in marketing, we have a notion that there is mass marketing, and then it migrates down to targeted markets, and then niche markets, and eventually one-to-one marketing. But when we think about mass marketing, what we think about is this idea that we try to treat all the customers the same in a generic market, and our goal is to try to reach the entire market simultaneously with very few product offerings. So this would be where we have very few, like one product should satisfy everybody. Now, in reality, it's very difficult to do this for a lot of different reasons, and not a lot of companies are able to do this successfully. But ultimately, as a strategy, there are two things to think about when we talk about scope. One would be meeting customer needs. The other would be delivering product at a price point and a cost that we are satisfied with in terms of margin. So when we do mass marketing, what we're doing is we're essentially providing one value or one product to everybody, and we assume that all the customers will be either happy with the product or they will be at least happy enough to buy it, even though it doesn't 100% meet their needs. At the same time, because we're dealing with a high volume, because of our market size is so large, the fact that we're dealing with a high volume means that our production costs per unit go down. So we gain efficiencies of scale. We can mass produce products, and even though the products are all the same and don't 100% meet all of our customers' needs, they do come at a cost that is lower than what we typically would expect. So from a production standpoint, our cost per unit is certainly lower. When we mass advertise or we use mass media in our advertising, typically we're reaching lots and lots and lots of people, so our cost per exposure in advertising tends to be low. Again, product development, product costs are a lot lower. And then also when we think about distributing the product to mass merchants, we can deliver very, very high quantities of products, because that's what we're selling, to single locations, so our cost for distribution declines as well. So from mass marketing, that's one market entry kind of philosophy or way to think about your product. Typically products that are like this are ones that are easy to understand, ones that are consumer durables, ones that lots and lots and lots of people want. And we think about things like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is a product, soda in general. Coca-Cola is a product that everybody loves. Maybe some people want nuances of it, like Diet Coke or some variations here and there. But generally speaking, they're trying to sell everybody a Coke. everybody is in their market to buy a Coke. So in a very broad sense, if we think of this from a very, very broad perspective, that would be a mass marketing type of a thing. Um, as we move from mass marketing down to one-to-one marketing, what we end up doing is we become much, much, much more selective in how we create the product and how we promote the product, because we start to narrowcast and focus on individual consumers who could potentially create an individual market. So we also have this idea, and again, we're just going to kind of skip this middle stage just for now. When we go from mass marketing to one-to-one, we look at these two extremes. In this sense, each customer will be their own separate market. So we're creating a product that is unique for a specific customer. We're going to set the price specifically for them. We're going to deliver it specifically to them. We're going to produce it specifically for them. Everything is going to be done custom for the customer in one-to-one marketing. So as you can imagine, customer needs are completely met as they were not in mass marketing. They're going to be completely met here. However, in a production sense, it's absolutely astronomical from a cost perspective to do one-to-one marketing or one-to-one custom design work and things like that. So in other words, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to charge a really high price, and we're going to have to be very, very selective. We're going to probably be an exclusive or a premium brand, and everything's going to be very personalized and so forth. And we're going to have the price sufficiently match the effort that we're going to, because our costs are going to be so super high. So this is going to be very expensive to implement. We know that each product will be unique that is being designed. It's a direct marketing or direct advertising type of a thing, as opposed to mass media advertising. So that's always more expensive to do when you're doing one-to-one advertising or communicating. Big key thing here is to establish relationships, very strong relationships between you and the customer or you and the distributor, so that we can sell this product. Which again, if we're dealing with that much relationship effort, then there's going to be a cost associated with it in time and also in money. Okay, so those are the two extremes, right? Mass marketing and one-to-one marketing. There are other variations in between, where we might have a niche market, where we might do some targeted marketing, where the groups are smaller than mass marketing, but they're not so small that you're looking at individuals to sell products to. Okay, so there are scope entry, market entry strategies that deal with market scope in the middle here as well. But I just want to give you a flavor for what the two extremes are, and you can kind of put the pieces together in between. So as we're thinking about launching a product and moving forward, there are a couple different strategies actually that we can consider. Let's say that we've segmented the market. So this in the green space here is a generic market space, and we have different market segments, but we have two market segments that are fairly closely related, and maybe these two market segments look very attractive to us. So what we want to do is produce a product, but we want to launch it and make it available to both market segments simultaneously. So in this sense, we're using a targeted marketing approach. It's not mass marketing, and it's not really a niche market per se, or it's not a custom market per se. But what we're doing is we're taking one product and we're applying it to two or more market segments. Note the overlap, which means that these two market segments are very similar to each other, and in some cases, they're indistinguishable from each other in that particular market space right there. When we do this, we call this a breadth strategy, because we're using a single product in multiple market segments. So this is a breadth strategy. We might have a different product. We could even have a product and we could position it to this group in here, and we could actually use one single product to hit segment A, B, and C. That's a possibility as well. In this example, we just chose a particular product to enter into D and E together, but there are a couple other ways. But you see, there's a lot of carryover here or overlap. So we might be able to have a product that relates to this middle section of consumers as well. That would be a breadth strategy. In addition to product A as well, we could have a different product reach that group. Another approach would be if we wanted to focus very narrowly on one group of consumers, and we wanted to reach that group of consumers with lots of different product options. Now, this is a case where we want to absolutely dominate a segment. We want to be able to run all of our competition out, and our goal here is to have a super high market share within this segment. We may not necessarily have a huge overall market share, in the generic market, but our market share in segment D, if I'm doing this, should be like 50, 60, 70%. It should be really high. I want to dominate this market if I'm going to do this type of strategy. This might be a niche or niche type of a group. It might be really well defined. It's a segment that we relate very, very well to and we know very well. This type of a strategy is called a depth strategy because we're creating lots of products and we're reaching very deeply into this segment to be able to satisfy their needs. So it's not a breadth strategy where we're trying to reach multiple segments with one product. Instead, what we're doing is we're focusing on the segment or the market now to really be the best that we can be at. Okay, so we had the breadth strategy, we have a depth strategy. A third strategy is if we design specific products for specific segments. So we have a product here for segment D, and we have a product here for segment E. And these specific products are designed for these specific segments. This is called a tailored strategy. A tailored strategy. When we think about entering a market space, we think about it, in a tailored type of a sense. Now, let your imagination go just a little bit here. What if we keep segmenting, based on the different criteria we have, and for each new segment, we create a new product. So we continue to divide this segment up and we offer them a new product. And then we divide them up again and offer them a new product. And then we divide them up again and again and again and again. If you keep dividing up a segment and continue this process, then eventually you reach a one-to-one environment where you've reached all your customers individually. And if you've created a tailored product for each of these segments, then you're in a one-to-one environment and you get into mass customization. So a tailored strategy, could theoretically lead to a one-to-one type of an approach or reach into a market if you continue to segment and if you continue to offer each new segment its own tailored product. If you continue to do this, eventually you'll reach a one-to-one mass customization type thing. So mass customization is a very big concept that is hitting us right now in a revolutionary way because it means that we're creating a unique product to meet the needs of unique customers. But the challenge is to be able to do so at a reduced cost so that we can bring the product to the market at a price point that makes sense for customers. That's the challenge that we have. Everybody wants a customized product delivered to them as a customer. As a consumer, I want a customized appeal made to me. I want a customized product delivered to me. I want the product created for me. But from a manufacturing perspective, it's just not possible or feasible most of the time. So what we're relying on now is a whole bunch of new technology that incorporates the voice of the customer. So during the 2000s, a ton of emphasis had been placed on including VOC or voice of the customer. And since about 2005, there's been a very, very big push in something called co-creation. So product co-creation, where the customer and the firm create a product together, and then the customer consumes it. So consumer or product co-creation is a big, big deal. It incorporates the voice of the customer, and it's primarily driven by the technology that's evolving in the digital realm, and as we move forward. So when we think about digital design and the technology devoted by the use of the internet and so on and so forth, but being able to create custom design work in a digital environment is enormously important, and it's becoming more and more so important. And then also on the other end of it, production processes that have become more automated, the rapid production concept that could be talked about in rapid prototyping and so forth, has become more accessible, allowing production costs to drop and happen at a price point that firms can still make margin, but now, if they're doing on a mass scale, customers can get a custom piece, but the margin doesn't have to be quite so large because you've got scale and you've got volume to cover the margin that you otherwise would have had in low production types of environments. So there's a whole bunch of technology happening now that is driving down costs of production, while simultaneously allowing mass customization to happen, and do so at price points that customers will accept and at margins that firms will accept because they're dealing with higher volumes of business now. So there's actually some documentation that deals with mass customization and different types of relationships firms have with customers. One of which is the collaborative customizers. These are consumers that work directly, or firms that work directly with the consumer to create a custom design product. So this is co-creation right here. Co-creation where the firm and the customer work together to build something. There's adaptive customizers that allow the customer to design everything on their own with only some very limited advice provided by the firm to help the customer if the customer needs it as well. There's cosmetic customizers and so this is a deal where you're a company, you produce a product that's basically the same for everybody, but there are little stylistic changes that people are desiring. And so they're able to customize these stylistic changes, but not the actual gut of the product. So the product is mass produced, and then the finish is customized. So that's a cosmetic customizer. And then finally, there's the transparent customizers. And in this way, what we're doing is we're letting the product be customized, but the customer doesn't even know it. So the back end process that the firm actually walks through creates a custom product, but the customer doesn't even know that it's unique to them. They assume that it's the same type of thing that's going on and so forth for everybody, but in fact it's not. It's something unique for them. So adaptive customers, cosmetic customizers, transparent customizers, and then the collaborative ones. These are all different types of customizers in a mass sense, and I believe that this is going to be the trend for a very, very, very long time. And if you're not in some way doing customization work, or at least moving in that direction, somebody out in your industry is. I guarantee it, and it's something that we'll need to move forward with. One last word on customization, mass customization. So in marketing, there's been a real strong emphasis on this for a number of years. And if you just think about some of the things that marketers do, dynamic pricing has been something that has happened, especially with things like eBay and digital pricing models. Basically, what we're doing is when customers want a product, we assign a price, and what we try to do is manipulate that price based on how much the customer wants the product. So if somebody has a high demand for the product, then they're going to pay more than somebody who wants the product less. So we see this in travel pricing all the time. So when you book an airplane ticket, if you book it a day before you have to fly, the price is going to be a lot higher because the assumption is your demand for the product is a lot higher. So dynamic pricing is where we let product prices float or change based on the demand that the consumer has for the good. So we're changing the price or customizing the price to meet the customer's need. Direct delivery. So again, having product shipped to your home instead of you having to go to the store to get it. Big deal nowadays, really, really big issue. So direct delivery, messaging, communicating, advertising directly to consumers without like a mass media type of approach. So being able to, we used to do this through direct mail. We'd actually, and some people still do, where they send a mailing like paper and pencil, like a paper flyer to a home. So that would be direct mail. Now we can do it through email, but even more so push technologies and the smartphone technology is where we have messages and advertising through apps and so forth. It's really kind of a one-to-one type of a deal we're doing now. And customized advertising that Google is as specialized and so forth is a good example of that. We also have one-to-one relationships in online environments. So in Facebook and Twitter and so on and so forth, we can develop relationships on a one-to-one basis now in a mass sense. And then finally, product design. Okay, so from a marketer's perspective, the one-to-one mass, one-to-one communicating on a massive scale is a direction that the whole industry is going towards, just like production and operations are in various ways. The consumer's really driving this, and so marketers have really been on top of this notion. All right, so wrapping this up then, 2 quick points. We talked about different market scope concepts and market entry strategies. We also talked about the onset and enthusiasm we all have for mass customization now.